whispers in the dark. Sophia stood on the balcony of her small apartment, gazing out at the city lights below. It had been almost 2 years since that fateful night when her world had been shattered into a million pieces. She could still hear the screeching of tires, the deafening crash, and then, nothing. Her husband, Mark, had been taken from her in an instant, leaving her alone to navigate the void he left behind. For months, she had wandered through life in a daze, her grief consuming her. But then, out of the darkness, came a light, a man who had given her a reason to feel again. His name was Alexander, her boss at the prestigious law firm where she worked as a paralegal. He was everything Mark had been, charismatic, intelligent, and with a smile that made her heart skip a beat. But there was one crucial difference. Alexander was married. Sophia knew it was wrong, knew she was treading on dangerous ground, but she couldn't help herself. The connection between them had been instant, electric. At first, it had been nothing more than stolen glances across the office, lingering touches that sent shivers down her spine, but as the months passed, their bond deepened, and before long, they had crossed the line from friendship into something much more. Their affair was a secret they both carried with them like a precious burden. They met in dimly lit hotel rooms, their passion burning as bright as the sun. In those moments, it was easy to forget the reality of their situation, easy to lose themselves in the fantasy they had created. But the guilt was never far behind, creeping in like a shadow, reminding them both of the lives they were tearing apart. Sophia knew she was living on borrowed time. The more she fell for Alexander, the more she realized how impossible their love was. He had a wife, a family, and a life that didn't include her. And yet, she couldn't let him go. The thought of losing him, of returning to the emptiness that had defined her life before, was too much to bear. One evening, as they lay tangled in the sheets of yet another anonymous hotel room, Sophia turned to Alexander, her heart heavy with the weight of their situation. "We can't keep doing this," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the pounding of her heart. Alexander's hand tightened around hers, his eyes searching hers for something, reassurance, perhaps, or a sign that she was wrong. "I know," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I can't lose you, Sophia. You've become a part of me, a part one can't live without." Tears welled up in Sophia's eyes, and she blinked them back, refusing to let them fall. "What about your wife? Your children? What happens when they find out?" Alexander sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know," he admitted. "I'm a coward, Sophia. I should have ended this before it even started, but I couldn't. I can't." They lay in silence for a long time, the weight of their choices pressing down on them like a vice. Sophia knew she was at a crossroads, knew she had to make a decision, before it was too late. "I love you," she finally said, her voice trembling. "But I can't keep living like this, in the shadows. I deserve more than that, and so do you." Alexander nodded, his eyes filled with a sorrow that matched her own. "I know," he said again. "And I love you, Sophia. More than I've ever loved anyone. But you're right. We can't keep doing this." The words hung between them, heavy and final. They both knew what had to happen next, even if neither of them wanted to say it out loud. As they dressed in silence, the reality of their situation settled over them like a shroud. This was the end, the moment they had both been dreading but knew was inevitable. When they reached the door, Alexander turned to her, his eyes filled with regret. "I'll never forget you," he said softly. Sophia managed a small smile, her heart breaking inside her chest. "And I'll never forget you," she replied. And with that, they parted ways, leaving behind the love that had consumed them both. As Sophia walked away, she felt a strange sense of peace wash over her. It was over, and though the pain of losing him would haunt her for a long time, she knew it was the right thing to do. For the first time in what felt like forever, she felt like she could breathe again.